You've gone up against quite a few rookie quarterbacks before. How do you defend against a young guy coming in like Bryce Young?
I think it's very simple. You try and speed up their process. There's one of those guys that you want him to be thinking at all particular point in time, and forcing him to really just be in chaos.
Right.
You can get him off chaos and keep him in that way. That is the way you want to attack. And as a defensive lineman, I am salivating to go against a young guy. I can't wait to see him, especially on a week one opportunity.
And, of course, his stature, his size was such a huge part of the discussion. And there are comps, for example, for Drew Brees. There are ways that you can affect the guys who are not as big as the other quarterbacks. Yeah,
he reminds me of a Drew Brees, as you mentioned. And he's one of those guys that I think a lot of pressure up the middle and really just getting him off his spot. And it's tough for a guy like that, especially when it comes to passing lanes. You want to affect it and get his offensive linemen on their heels on his feet. So he has to scramble and try and get out and make plays with his feet. And then you guys just rally to the ball from there.
Does the offensive line block differently in these scenarios?
Yeah, without question. I think offensive line definitely wants to create a shield for him, especially up in the between the center and the two guards, just to protect him, and then obviously let people come around the edge, and then he can sneak out. Because he's young, he wants to be athletic, he wants to make plays.
I do feel, though, he knows he has to be very smart and protect himself at every turn. Let's bring in the guys here. Cam, of course, you were with the Panthers throughout the draft, so you've talked to so many people in the building and even across the league. What have you gleaned about the Panthers going into this Bryce Young era?
Yeah, MJ, Panthers offensive coordinator Thomas Brown told me this week that Bryce Young is looking really good so far. He said as good as advertised after they saw him in rookie minicamp so far. And Coach Frank Reich made clear that, look, Bryce Young, he's going to be the number 2 quarterback behind Andy Dalton when they start OTAs next week. But Brown also added that Bryce Young's going to get some first-team reps. And from talking with people here in Carolina, although they want Bryce to earn that job, I would be surprised if he is not that week 1 starter. Look, Bryce has made it clear he's not entitled to anything being the top pick, but they've also seen the recall that he's already shown for plays, the ability for him not to get rattled. You heard Ndamukong talk about you want to get a rookie quarterback rattled. What they love about Bryce is that he's always in control. He led FBS college football in passing yards and touchdowns under pressure, and they believe that is going to translate over into the NFL. And Brown also said, that's why I never cared about his 5'10" height. I looked at the tape, I looked at the person, and it stood out. And so one thing to watch this year at Tate Baldy and OTAs is they're molding the schemes together with the Rams and the Colts, with Frank Reich and what they were doing with Sean McVay. And so they're trying to create a quarterback-friendly scheme for Bryce, get a lot of motion, get a lot of pre-snap motion and on-snap motion, and some RPOs as well, so that he can get the ball to those playmakers, be the point guard that they drafted him to be.
So, Cam, I'm glad I'm going third in this discussion. Here's why. Because Josh McCown mentioned the CBA. There's restrictions on just how much you can do. It's not fair to young players. And Ndamukong Suh could care less about the restrictions. He's earned that right. Young guys, they need time. They need time. Okay, then Ndamukong Suh mentioned chaos. Like, the chaos hasn't hit Bryce Young yet. We don't know how he's going to handle it because it's going to happen. There's going to be frustration. There's going to be chaos. And then, you know, what Cam just mentioned is there's Thomas Brown comes from the Rams, you know, and Frank Reich has got his offense, and Josh McCown has his ideas. And we're going to all mold this offense in an offseason that's very restricted. Like, I am concerned about overloading him. Meanwhile, there's Andy Dalton with 162 starts in this league. He's won a lot of games. He's a proven, frontline starter in this business. And so I want Bryce Young to earn it. At the same time, we just can't overburden him. There's just so much to learn, so much to digest before week 1 against the Atlanta Falcons. And there's really not that much time to get there. And so that's the concern, is just the overload aspect. And while he's trying to demonstrate to his whole team that I'm ready for this job.
Yeah, it's a lot to install. It's a lot to take in from now all the way through when we start training camp in July, especially with those restrictions like you mentioned. But, Cam, you touched on the RPO situation. So let's say the Panthers do lean into this run-pass option. How does that change the way defenses will approach Bryce Young?
Yeah, I think defenses are going to have to adjust to that standpoint because he's going to be out and about an open field. There's not going to be different things that he's going to have to worry about, especially when it comes to protections. He knows he's going to have certain looks that he's going to go to immediately, and they're giving him limited options from that standpoint. Run, play action, and it's moving with whether you got a defensive lineman are going to be slowing down because they got to play the run. For me personally, I'm not worried about that. I'm going straight to the quarterback because I know he wants to make big plays.
Facts. Well, that's why everybody wants Ndamukong Suh on their side. Cam, I like that you mentioned, too, that you'd be surprised that folks told you they'd be surprised if he wasn't the starter. That doesn't mean it's a lock, though, but I know he's working hard to earn that, just like you mentioned.